Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Yes, this is the Uncle Marv podcast. We are back after a long, extended, and needed break. Had to do that, folks. It was getting a little too hectic, and I'll explain just a little bit about that. But first, I want to let you know that the show is not going to be just me. If you've paid attention, I've got a great guest coming up. She's going to be fantastic. You're going to enjoy her. But I want to take just a couple of minutes and explain why it's been such a long time between shows. And as many of you might know, the last show was recorded back at the end of July with my good basketball buddy, Dave Becker. And I meant to go post that show up. And then I had to do stuff surrounding George Floyd and ended up having some great, lovely private conversations with that. A little intense. So had to put a couple of things on hold, had to do work, had some major work projects come up, taking away the weekends. And I know that many of you, when you were watching the show, you loved it on the weekends instead of a Tuesday or a Thursday night. I haven't figured out what the time frame is going to be long term, but I'll figure it out. But for the most part, I do these shows when I can, as long as they don't interfere with work or the wife. So the WW is what I have to contend with. So just to let you know about that. So I did have some great conversations. I actually got to visit with the lovely Carol McKenna and her husband over at Bonita Springs. The wife and I took a little COVID trip over there to get away one weekend. Let me rephrase that. The wife told me we were going and to pick a spot, and that's where we picked. So that's what we did. Also got to spend another weekend away this past weekend as we just celebrated our 18th wedding anniversary. Some of you owe me $1 because you didn't think I'd make it past 10, and here we are at 18. So suck it, guys. That's all I got to say with that. Let's see what else we've done. I know that we've got some shows coming up. There's a possibility of a panel of guests coming up here. I don't want to say their names because I don't want to jinx it, because another reason that I had some shows disappear in August was because some people who said they would be on the show suddenly decided, oh, I can't be on the show. So left me hanging. I'm not going to call their names out yet. I'm going to give them another opportunity to come correct, and we'll get it straight, and I'll get them on. And all should be well in the universe once that happens. So I think that's going to do it for the housekeeping and announcements. I'm going to basically have some more later. But right now, I would love to get to the guest who's sitting in the green room, and she's looking a little lost and confused. So, ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, so, ladies and gentlemen, I am bringing you a friend from way back. I think the year was 1992, and her last name was Howse. So I dubbed her Dana Britt Howse. So, Dana, welcome to the show. How are you? Oh, right as you drink.
I am well, thank you, Marvin. How are you? It's great to see you after all these years.
Yes, after all these years. Your hair is longer, and mine is shorter.
And mine is grayer as well. I noticed from the pictures that you presented, I was like, wow, those are from a long time ago.
Did you like the pictures that I selected for your montage?
Those were really awesome pictures. It was quite the eclectic, a little bit of CrossFit, a little bit of my past work, and then some like way back to the JA conference. Those were fun.
Yeah,
I like those.
So I saw some photos that I almost put in there, but I'm like, no, let me save those for another time. So there's some pretty intense CrossFit pictures going on there.
Oh, yeah, back in my CrossFit days.
Yep. Uh, so
Yeah.
let's do this. First of all, I need to explain to the folks, there's going to be a little bit of a lag or delay at times because Dana is actually not in the States right now. For those of you that are her friends, you already know this, but for listeners of mine, friends of mine who don't know you, you recently bolted from the US. So why don't you explain that?
We got our ticket out. My husband got a job back in April, which was after the shutdown when everybody was working from home. He got a job offer from Pandora Jewelry, not music, that is headquartered in Copenhagen, Denmark. And in the end of July, we relocated the whole family to Copenhagen, Denmark. So we now live here and arrived 6 weeks ago today.
Wow. So how has the adjustment been so far?
Well, it's interesting. It's weird to think that it's been 6 weeks. I'm not sure if I feel like it's been longer or shorter. It's been such a journey just in those 6 weeks. There was a huge sense of relief of exiting the US, but also just all the work it took to pack up a house, pack up a life there, close down everything there, start everything up here. The list, the to-do list from May, June, and July was seemingly endless. And so it was sort of this relief of getting here and just like, wow, we're here. And we're in temporary housing, and so we're still a little bit in limbo, but the kids started school in person 3 weeks ago. My husband started work in person at the office 4 weeks ago. And, it's been exciting, new, frustrating, sometimes lonely, sometimes overwhelming. Everything is new every day, figuring out new systems every day. So it's kind of, you name the emotion, it's been there in the last 6 weeks.
All right. So I'm going to treat this like a live show, like radio. So somebody motoring down the road there. So I need to obviously at times remind everybody that we're talking to Dana Armstrong, otherwise known as the Brick. And you just recently moved from, now I should probably go back and double check. Were you still in the state of Washington?
Yeah, we moved it from Seattle. And
from Seattle.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you did that and moved over to Denmark. So let me ask the obvious questions first. Your husband got the job, but did you actually know people in Denmark?
No. Well, so I have a friend that I met way back, even before I met you, in college on semester at sea. She is from Houston, Texas, but she married a Dane, and they lived in Denmark for a number of years. Right after they got married, 2 of the 3 kids were born here, but 12 years ago they moved back and live in Austin, but they come every summer. So they were here when we got here. And so I saw her, but she has since left to go back to Houston. I know her mother-in-law, and she lives here, and actually I'll see her next week. But really, for all intents and purposes, no, we didn't know anybody. Yeah, I mean, it's just everybody that I know here now I've met in the last 6 weeks.
All right. So
Yeah.
I don't know your husband, and we'll change that at some point in the future. And I have to believe that this was some kind of job to basically decide it's a good time to leave the country and go to another country and stuff like that. And because of his job, I have to now ask about you and your job. Were you in a position where it was easy to make this move? Because you've been doing some pretty big things as far as I can tell.
Well, so to add some context to that, we've actually been working on this for over a year. And the fact that we ended up in Denmark was not what we targeted. In fact, we were really trying to move to Southeast Asia. And so this has been something we've wanted to do pretty much since we met. And life takes its twists and turns. And back in 2011, we had an opportunity to maybe move to Turkey, and that blew up when the kids were really little. Then we had our own business and then kind of recovered from that. So this wasn't out of the blue, and this was always something that we together as a couple decided we want to move overseas with our girls, who are now 11 and 13. And so while he was looking for jobs overseas and still working at his job in Seattle, I worked for, I was the executive director of a nonprofit that worked in the homelessness space in Seattle, which is a big, big issue in Seattle. And so, you know, it was over the last, well, I left my job in May. So for the prior 6 to 9 months, there was a lot of mixed emotions about it, to be honest. Like, I really wanted to move overseas. It was important to me. Then, you know, there's also all the things going on in the United States that it just felt like it's time to get out if we can, and particularly for our girls to get out. But leaving behind a job that I loved and that I really believe in, and is continuing on to do great work. And I'm still working with the executive director who took over my position, is a guy that I had hired mere months before I left, and who's doing a phenomenal job. And I meet with him once a week over Zoom. But, you know, that was something I was really passionate about. So I was in 100% for moving overseas, but I did leave behind something that I believed in and loved. But you know, life is like that. You gotta make choices. And this was our choice. And I was in 100%.
Okay. All right. Because part of me was thinking, well, you could have moved from Seattle to, say, Florida. You know?
Just say Florida.
All right.
Yeah, could have.
Go ahead.
What's that?
I was say, go ahead.
I
was delay.
So we were really looking at overseas, and for so many different reasons of just sort of the growth opportunity to expose our girls to a different culture, and recognize that sometimes things are really different, and they're not wrong, they're not bad, they're just different, and you don't even know what's different until you get into it. And you're like, whoa, that's really different. Why? You know, I got to figure out this new system. And you know, learning how to do that. I mean, kids are very adaptable and very resilient, and they're doing great. They love it. They're very happy here.
I was going to say, kids are not only adaptive, they're resilient, and you picked probably the right time to do it. Of course, if you'd have done it younger, you know, maybe they wouldn't appreciate it, you know, because they've at least now at the age where they've seen some stuff, they know the U.S., and now they can see another country and how things are viewed from outside of the U.S.
Exactly. And, you know, this past week, just yesterday, their friends from Seattle started school online. And we got sort of the play-by-play from some close friends of ours, because Seattle Public Schools had a few technical glitches getting going online. And so they're feeling very, very fortunate that they go to school in person. Of course, our experience here would be very different if they were going to school online. They wouldn't know anybody. And that they, you know, kind of have a really normal life here for the most part. That is something that I know, being in the United States, it's hard to even imagine that. Like, what does that mean? But, you know, masks, they're now mandated on all public transit. You get a $500 ticket if you don't wear one, and it is enforced. And everybody wears them. There's no chin slings, there's no noses hanging out. Everybody wears their masks. But for the most part, you don't see them anywhere else other than around transit stations. Other than, we did just go to Tivoli today, which is the big amusement park. And any of your listeners who have been to Copenhagen in the summer have no doubt been to Tivoli, because that's one of the places you go. And so there were several rides that we were required to wear masks. So we had our masks, and they would hand them out to people who didn't have them. But other than that, life is pretty normal here.
Okay.
It's kind of weird. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, I can't say that because here in South Florida, Florida man thrives.
Yeah, I can only imagine.
All right. So let's go back now and talk about. So the last time you and I saw each other, I believe, was in Bloomington, Indiana, at a National Junior Achievement Conference. And I believe the year was 1992.
I think you're right, because the first year we met was 91, and then we came back as co-counselors in 92. Yeah, so I think you're right.
Wait,
Crazy.
we met in 91?
Yeah, because that was the year that I was there with the Mexican students, because I was running the exchange program for JA between Mexico and the US, and I had been in Mexico City, and I brought the US students who had been in Mexico to Bloomington, and then I went home with the Mexican students who had been all over the US, and I took them home at the end. It was right after my birthday. And we stayed an extra day, which was my birthday. And I think you and I were one of the few, and my Mexican exchange students were one of the only ones left on campus for the last couple of days after the conference was over.
So I believe that was the year that half of Mexico was in my group. Or
probably.
It was a very interesting year for me, 91, to have all the international influence in my group. And luckily, my 3 years of Spanish kicked in, and I knew just enough so that they wouldn't talk about me.
Exactly. They're like, "Ooh, he understands." Yeah. And they were older, because Mexico's junior achievement program goes into college. And so many of them were like 19 or 20 years old, 21, like they were older, which I think was a bit of a difference, since most of the US students were all high school students. So that was kind of a different bit as well. But,
Now I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to remember now. Did you officially work for Junior Achievement that year?
Not well. So after I was in Mexico, so I went to Mexico right after I graduated from college, and that was working for Junior Achievement in Mexico City. And then I came back and I worked for a foundation that was doing a business exchange with Moscow. And then in conjunction with that was the opening of Junior Achievement in Russia, which was kind of a big deal back in the 90s, in the early 90s. Yeah. And so I spent the fall of 91, right after I had been in Mexico, in Seattle, but calling every single JA office across the country and talking to the executive directors and saying, this is why you need to participate in this, and this is how you can raise money, and you can bring students, you can bring business consultants, and you can bring JA staff, but this is what it costs, and these are all the things. And so I got together, I think it was a group of over 100 students, teachers, and business consultants from the US to go over to this business conference in Moscow right after Thanksgiving in 1991. So it was like December 1st, 1991. And when we landed in Moscow, it was the Soviet Union. And when we left, it was probably 10 days later, Gorbachev had stepped down. There was this total dissolution of Soviet Union. They were going to call it the Commonwealth of Independent States. And everybody in the US was freaking out. Colorado Springs, headquarters of JA International. I was on the phone with them constantly. They were like freaking out because all they saw was what was on TV, and we're like, we don't even know what's happening. Like, we couldn't understand what was going on. We didn't understand Russian. And so they were like, okay, Dana, you're going to take everybody and leave 5 days early. Oh, no, we can't do that because they're on flights. So Dana, you're going to take the students and hang out in Stockholm and wait for the adults to show up. Oh, no, we can't do that. There's not enough flights. We ended up leaving on the flight that we were supposed to leave on, But in the meantime, our accommodations in Moscow for our last night in Moscow, once we brought everybody back to Moscow, we had groups going all over the country, had been canceled. And so suddenly we had 100 people in Moscow with no hotel reservations. And I'm pretty sure there were a couple crates of whiskey that got us some hotel reservations pretty quickly to move us around. But it was this whole huge thing with JA. But we were fine, like we weren't in any danger. But yeah, so that was in 1991. And then I don't remember what I did after that, but you and I had kept in touch. And so you're like, hey, I'm going back as a counselor or whatever, head of a group. You're going to be my partner. And I was like, all right, why not? So you and I did that.
I think that kind of freaked you out. Yeah, I think you were freaked out. You're like, oh, I'm going to be your partner. How is that? And it was funny because I don't even remember how I got the request through, because you weren't supposed to be able to request your partners. And I don't know what
Marvin has some strings that he can pull. I just think that you're well connected, and everybody's like, oh, well, you got to give Marvin what he gets. I think you just need the right people to talk to.
Oh my. So yeah, so those are fun days. And some of those pictures that I put in your montage are from there. I have a couple that I almost put in from the night of the dance. You and I dressed up with the kids, and you playing, Mother Howse and cutting the cookie and giving it out to the kids. Probably don't remember that, do you?
I'd love to see those pictures. I don't. That was so long ago. And since I don't have those pictures, I don't have, the picture that you showed me of me in the dorm in the green shirt. I was like, wow, that's a long time ago. Yeah, no, I'd love to see those pictures. That's pretty funny. Of us dressed up. That I'm sure looks good.
Yeah, for the girl who was the outdoorsman and climbing mountains all the time and stuff. And I always, for some reason, got the mountain mixed up, because if I remember correctly, I always told everybody, oh yeah, she climbed Mount Kilimanjaro, but it was Mount Rainier or something like that. Does that sound right?
It was that summer. It was Mount McKinley that summer in Alaska, Denali. Yeah, because 1992, I climbed that in July of that summer, and then later in that summer, you and I met up in Bloomington. So, yeah, that was probably the last mountain I climbed. But maybe not. I think I climbed a couple since then. But my mountain climbing days are long behind me.
I was going to say, it was like a mountain a year for you for a while there, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, Denali was really the big one. I mean, the tallest mountain in the U.S. That was an expedition climb of 17 days on the mountain. That was the biggest undertaking. I did Rainier a few times, Adams, St. Helens. My sister and I were down in South America, and we did some other things down there. But Mount McKinley was that was the big one. Yeah. So
okay. All right.
Did you go back to the JA conference after 92, or was that your last year?
I went for 2 more years.
Okay.
So my last year was 94, and it was, let's see, so 92 was, I believe, the year that they changed the name to the International Student Forum. And 93 was the last year at Indiana University. 94, they moved it to Michigan, and it was a
University of
Michigan
in Ann Arbor.
No, they moved it to some. It wasn't a college; it was some camp or some weird place, and it just listen. No respect to junior achievement, but for me, that conference stunk, and I was done. That's probably the easiest way I can put it. But I should say it stunk for me. I think there were a lot of people that still liked it. The conference continued on for a few more years. It was called the Company Masters Program or something like that. And it did good stuff. And they've even brought a conference back similar to that, but nothing will compare to the National Junior Achievement Conference.
That thing was huge. I mean, it was kind of, if I look back on that, just the coordination to make that happen and how cool it was that it was on a really nice college campus. And it was a very well run program for the 2 years that I was there. That was pretty cool.
Yep, it was a big event. So, so last year, oh no, was it? See, last year, yeah. So last year, a lot of the staff, and I probably sent you a message seeing if you could go. So we started this thing where every few years, a bunch of the staff over the years will gather back at Indiana University. We were able to do it last year. We couldn't do it this year. I believe we're going to do it next year. But it's great to be able to see all the different staff members, some that worked for Junior Achievement, others that were just staff members at the conference, to be able to, sit back, reminisce, talk about life, kind of like you and I are doing now, and just talk about what that conference was. Because, when you came those 2 years, that was probably the tail end of one of the most robust eras of conferences, to put 3,000 students who didn't know each other, cram them into this curriculum for 1 week. And many of those kids became lifelong friends who, you may never see them again, or you may see them every now and then. But every time we went back to the conference, it was like picking up as if it were yesterday.
That's cool. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's in its own way is a camp that, kids go back to the same camp every year and see their same friends. It's the same idea, but around Junior Achievement. And, having done several events, I can appreciate the level of effort and work and logistics to pull that off and pull it off smoothly. And, yeah, it was a cool event. And that's really cool that you guys keep in touch and connect and, just kind of keep that connection going over the years.
All right.
Yeah.
So now let's transition to the personal. And I know that I announced that my wife and I just celebrated 18 years. So my question to you is, how is it that you decided that 1 year after I got married, you figured it was time for you to get married too?
You paved the way. And I was like, well, Marvin's in, I'm in too. All right, twist my arm. And, Labor Day weekend is just a good weekend to do it, right?
Now, was yours the 30th or 31st?
There's the 31st. So the year that I got married, that was the Sunday of Labor Day.
Day as ours, 31st.
Okay. So you did it the Saturday of Labor Day weekend then?
Yep.
Okay. And so we had done it on Sunday to just try and give people travel time Saturday and Monday if they didn't want to take work off. But yes, exact same day, 1 year later. Because, I thought, well, you did it on the 31st, so why not?
Interesting. All right. Yeah. So I've asked all the questions so far. Let me at least turn it around and give you the opportunity to ask your questions.
Well, I guess, what have you been, so after JA, because you didn't work for JA, you're mostly were staff at the forum, and then you had your other job. And what is that?
So actually, 92 to 94, I did work for Junior Achievement here in South Florida.
Okay.
So when we met, I was having the 3 years of darkness in Carolina. So I was still attending grad school, otherwise known as seminary to some people. But I had finished that and moved back to Fort Lauderdale, worked for Junior Achievement for 2 years, and we had a nice 2-year run there, but it was time to leave. And then I did a couple of odd little jobs, worked for the Humane Society of Broward County as the volunteer director there. And, I've always had this thing with computers, and I was building computers on the side and selling them to the local computer store. And the owner there was like, when are you going to come work for me? Because you build computers better than my guys. And I said, well, if you can match my salary, I'll go. And it took him about 6 months, and he called me up and said, okay, I can do it. And so I left Humane Society, went to work for this computer store. He complained so much that I cost him so much money, because in order to pay me what I had told him, he had to obviously pay his other employees more. And so he always blames me for costing him so much money.
For paying actually livable wages and wages that are good and people can live on.
Yeah. So I was there for 2 years. And then one Tuesday morning, he pissed me off and didn't think that I could run a store or do anything on my own. So I said, all right, I'm done. And so that next Monday, I had my business plan. I had my letter of resignation, started the company that I have today. That was in 1997. It was to do on-site network support, and I am still doing it today.
Wow, that's a long run. That is
It is
23 years.
Yep.
Good for you. I can appreciate how hard running your own business is, and that's no small feat. Good for you.
It's been fun. It's been weird at times.
So do you have employees, and or is it you, or how do you
so I just have at one point, so at one point I did have 3 employees that were not my family. That goes back in 2000, somewhere in the 2000s, I started hiring staff, and I had 2 full-time techs that worked for me. I had an office person. And then things started changing in the industry. So we started switching some stuff around. Once we started to be able to do remote support, I didn't have to, let me rephrase that. I got tired of looking at the techs in the tech room, not doing anything. And I'm like, I'm just paying them to sit. So I got rid of the techs. I tried to keep 1 full-time, and in 2008 is when Kim actually left the job that she was at and started coming to work for us. And so we kind of made a transition, got rid of the tech. So it was just her and I for a long time. And I subbed out techs when I needed them. So I've got some other friends in the industry. They have their own business, but we basically help each other out. So, when I do need to do big jobs and stuff, I hire them and they hire me. So I've been able to do this with subcontractors, and just last month hired my nephew.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yep. So I got to teach him and see how well he'll do. And I'm probably on the cusp of where I should probably hire a full-time tech again, but we're going to try to see how long we can go before doing that.
Oh. So how old is your nephew?
17.
Okay. So that's cool. That'll be a great experience for him to learn from the master. Now, is Kim your wife?
Yes. Yes, I don't let her out much.
Shouldn't. How did you meet her? Did you meet her because you had hired her to work for you, or she worked for you because you already had the relationship? I guess.
See,
if I look back, it's 18 years.
I'm trying to think. I've probably never officially told the story. So
here's your chance.
Because nobody ever asks. So I met Kim in a bar. But the way that I met her is not like I went to a bar and she was at the bar and we met up and stuff. She was coming down from Ohio with a friend. And the person that was supposed to kind of take them around and show them around was the sister of her friend, who bolted on them or something like that. But she said, what I can do is there's this guy I know that can show you around and make sure that you guys have a good time. So that was me.
That was you.
Only I didn't know that I was designated to be this friend. So this is somebody who I had just kind of met, and So when I say this bar, it was more like a sports bar for me. I would go like on Sundays and Mondays to watch the ball games, and then I'd leave. But on the weekends, they were a bar, and they had, you know, a dance club, and they had a live band. And every now and then I would go, but I was such good friends with the bartenders and the owners that if there was ever any trouble, I could step in and help and not have the bar, you know, have any liability. For instance, you know, if a regular girl got too drunk and needed a ride home, I could take her home. Everybody would feel good because I wouldn't take advantage of her and get her home safe and all that stuff. So that was my role at the bar. It's weird, weird role.
But somehow so Marvin. I mean,
Yeah. So apparently I was supposed to meet them one Saturday night, but didn't. And I don't remember why. And so on like Tuesday, I get a call, and it's the friend yelling at me for not showing up to do what I was supposed to do. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And she's like, remember my friends? I said, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. So I had to like get dressed up on a Tuesday night to go out and meet them. So I met her on a Tuesday night, and the friend was leaving the next day. Yeah. So basically they still had 10 days left on their vacation, and I ended up spending either 7 or 8 of the next 10 days with them.
Good thing you actually showed up to that one, huh?
Yeah. So, you know, at the end of the 10 days, we hit it off and stayed in touch. And 6 years later, I convinced her to move down to Florida. And then 2 years after that, we got married. 2 years after that, she moved to Atlanta. And 2 years after that, I said, enough of that. Get your butt back down to Florida. And we've been here ever.
Yeah. So where in Ohio is she from?
She is from a town called Rootstown, which is outside of Akron, which is near Kent.
My
which is
husband is okay. Outside of where?
Cleveland.
Okay.
So it's like an hour.
My husband is from Cincy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So we go to the southern part of the state rather than the northern part of the state. But
all right.
Yeah, so we go to Cincy. Yeah.
So tell me about Snowden. How did you meet? And that just sounds so Seattle of you to find some guy named Snowden.
Well, you know, I will often say that his name was part of the attraction. We met at a party. My friend Dana invited me to a party that was being thrown by a guy who is now her husband, but she had just started dating him. And he had gone to business school with Snowden, and a bunch of them after graduation had moved out to Seattle and didn't really know anybody. So they kind of all hung out. And I met Snowden there. And we chatted for a little bit, and then I kind of lost him in the party, and then we danced later, and then he asked me for my phone number, and I was like, great. Gave him my business card, so it was clearly my number, right? You know, but I did say I didn't use the email address on there, so you have to call me, which was really the fatal mistake. So he didn't call, and my friend Dana called me every day. Did he call you? Did he call you? Like, no, he didn't call me. And so I was like, you know what, he's not going to, you know, whatever, it's not meant to be. And I guess about a week later, Dana and her now husband, boyfriend, were out at a concert and ran into Snowden. And she's like, she called me the next day. She's like, I was so good. I didn't say anything for the longest time, but then he started complaining about how hard it is to meet decent women in Seattle. She's like, I told him he screwed up with the best girl he could possibly, you know, he totally blew it. And he's like, okay, I'll reach out to her. So he got my email address through Randy and Dana, and sent me an email, and and asked me out, apologized, and he was very funny about it. It was very endearing. And so we went out, and that was that. So
Okay.
that was
So,
it'll be 20 years ago in January.
now,
Yeah.
of course, I'm going to ask these questions, and I don't know if anybody else did. He had your business card. Why did he need to get another email address? Did he throw the card away?
Well, because the email address on the card was not my email address. I was a contractor for VoiceStream, which is now T-Mobile, and I didn't use my VoiceStream email, but my VoiceStream email was on my business card. And so he's much more of an email person than a call person. And so he had to get my real email address from Dana to email me. And that's,
see, that would have been a strike. It's like, I told you to call.
No, it was, it's so funny. So I got the email, I was at work, and I saw it come in, and I was like, I just rolled my eyes. I'm like, why am I even bothering? What is he gonna say? And so Snowden is, he's an English major who writes very well. He's also quite funny. And he wrote this very, like, I screwed up, but it was very funny and it was very endearing. And he just kind of redeemed himself with that. And I was like, all right, give this a shot. So, and it's funny because he is not, for years after we started dating and got married, I just would every once in a while just marvel, be like, I can't even believe we started dating. Like, once we started dating, it was all good, but he's not a flirty guy. He's not a pickup guy. He's not a player. He's so the fact that we actually could get, once we got on our date, it was all good. But so we just had to get there.
All right.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask
that's
a
all.
second question.
That's all history.
Yeah. So watching the screen here, it looked like you were looking up at somebody. So I know you're at home. I know it's late there. So is he like watching you? Is he in the other room? Did he walk in just as we were going through this?
No, he is, well, he's in our bedroom. We're in a very small apartment. We're in a 2-bedroom apartment. I'm in the dining room area. He is in the bedroom. He can probably hear me. But when I looked up, my daughter was walking from her room into our room, which is where the shower is, wrapped in a towel. And so I kind of moved my computer a little bit so that she wouldn't be walking behind my computer. Yeah, so they're all home. They got home from Tivoli. It's dark now. It's 10 minutes to 9, and it's dark. But the kids will be going to bed soon. But no, I'm by myself in the room right now.
All right. So you're 7 hours. You're 7 hours ahead of me.
You're not on Eastern time?
Yeah, but it's if it's 2:47 here, and you said it's 10 minutes to 9 there. Oh, what is that? 6?
So six hours. 6 hours. Yeah. Cause I'm cause we're 9 hours ahead of Seattle. So 6 hours. Yeah.
6 hours. All right. Not terrible.
Yeah.
All right. So you guys are getting ready for bed and doing all that stuff. And so here's the question. Here it's Labor Day weekend. You would normally have the Monday off. So over there, not going to have the Monday, are you?
Monday actually is a kind of a big day for us because we've been here for 6 weeks and we are finally able to have our appointment, because it's only by appointment, with the bank to set up a bank account in Denmark.
What?
Which is huge because everything in Denmark is mobile pay. It's very digital. You can use cash, but it's not a particularly cash thing, but everything's mobile pay. Everything at the girls' school was mobile pay. So they went on field trips and they're like, oh, pay mobile pay this. And we're like, I have no way. We couldn't pay our cell phone bill because it is only digital pay. And the only option that they gave me was to wire money from the US, which costs $45 to wire money for a cell phone bill that was $66. And so we have been living just, in our apartment, everything, as tourists. And so setting up a bank account is a really big thing. It usually doesn't take this long. There's a big backlog from COVID and everything was shut down and a lot of people moved here. And so it doesn't usually take 6 weeks, but Monday is our bank appointment. So that's a big day for us.
Wow.
The kids will go to school as usual. But yes, there's this whole series of things to set up, a bureaucracy to set up to become a local resident. And that's actually our last piece. And it's not, the bank isn't usually the last piece. But there's all these other things that, I think it might be the same to move to America, but, I've had a social security number since I was a baby, so I didn't have to activate my social security number. But here we had to get our CPR numbers issued to us and then we had to get them activated, but we had to wait 3 weeks before we could get them activated. So we weren't actually in the system. I mean, there's all this bureaucracy of things that have to happen for us to be local citizens functioning in society. And so this is just annual weekend in Denmark, like no big deal. But everybody at home has Monday off. So yeah.
All right.
What are you doing for the 3-day weekend?
I don't know yet. She hasn't told me. So
she's still scheming.
Yeah. So I do know that this afternoon I have to barbecue for the family. So my sister lives about 25 minutes away. So when my nephew comes to work for us, he usually comes Friday, stays the night, and then works for me on Saturday, especially if I have a project. And so when she comes to pick him up, they'll stay for dinner and we'll do that stuff. So that's what I know that we're doing today. As for tomorrow and Monday, okay. I don't know. So.
Okay. You'll be told on a need-to-know basis. You'll know when you need to know.
Absolutely. Yes. So here's the thing. So we've been watching the 90-Day Fiancé series. And I don't know if you've watched that or know what it is, but it's basically on, what channel is it? TLC or whatever that channel is. And it's all about so they've got the 90-Day Fiancé series. They've got before the 90 days. They've got after the 90 days. And it's all based on, people having to get green cards or, to come to America and get married within the 90 days. The other way is for, people going to other countries and stuff. And one of the things that they're showing is that people aren't doing their due diligence to know what has to happen in order for them to work in other countries. And I was going to ask you, this is a situation where you're not going to meet somebody in Denmark, you're moving your family there. So how much of a shell shock was it for you, moving out of the US into another country?
Well, I don't know how much of a shell shock. I've lived in other countries various times in my life. It has always been Spanish-speaking countries, and I speak Spanish. Although when I first did that, I didn't really speak Spanish. That's how I learned Spanish. So I've lived in Spain, Mexico, Costa Rica, Chile, Argentina, various times, various periods of times. So moving to Denmark, it's European. It's there are differences, a lot of differences, but there's a lot of similarities that make it not too hard. And the other thing that I think actually about this a lot is Danish, super hard language to learn. Oh my God. I think it's like the 9th hardest language to learn for English speakers. We are trying. I'm on Duolingo. The kids are learning it at school. It's very hard to pronounce. It's very hard. It's a very hard language. Danes learn English starting in 3rd grade. And almost all adults speak excellent, like excellent English. So interacting with people in stores, on the phone is the hardest. I don't know if you've ever tried to make a phone call in a foreign language. It's really intimidating. And even even being fluent in Spanish, speaking to somebody in Spanish on the phone is really hard. But I can pick up the phone, and once I can get through the automated phone system and talk to a person, the person speaks some level of English. And so there's a lot of things that aren't as hard here as they might be in other places.
Except getting a bank.
Shell-shocked. Well, yeah, there's a lot of bureaucracy, and we knew that, we have to activate our CPR number, and then we have to get our yellow card, and then we have to get our NEM ID, which is what digitizes everything. And then we have to, but usually you get your bank account before the NEM ID, and the bank helps you get the NEM ID. And then, it's like all these things, and you're reading through all this because because of Snowden's job, we have a lot of hand holding. And so we have a relocation person at his company, as well as a relocation agency that is doing a lot of stuff for us. But they can't do our bank account for us, but they set it up and so forth. So they gave us all this information ahead of time. And I remember reading this going, oh my God, I know this will make sense to me once I'm there, but wow, this is really confusing. But once you're here, you kind of go through all the steps, like, okay, I did that. Now what's next? We have to wait for this. Now we got that. Now what's next? And so it's just kind of figuring it out. But again, the fact that I can go to the municipality in the area that we live and get, I've been there 10 times for different things. Do we have to go?
No, I just watching some Yahoo pull into my parking lot.
Oh, okay. And the fact that I can just go to the municipality, and we deal with parking for our car, and that was a whole headache. But then I can talk to somebody in English and explain to them what my problem is, and they can help me figure it out. It's just another hoop to jump through. So, yeah, I wouldn't say there's a lot of shock to it. It's more of just kind of figuring out, well, what is it that I need to do? What do I need to know? What don't I know? Because, so much of it is I have no idea what I don't know. And you think everything's going to work the way you think it's going to work. And then you're like, oh, that didn't work the way I thought it was going to work. I wonder what's different. How do I figure that out? Who do I talk to? So, yeah. But I now have some friends that have lived here a while that I can ask, and I have some Danish friends that I can ask things to. So, you just got to be patient and realize some things just take a lot longer than you expect they're going to take.
All right. Now, you originally said you were targeting Asia as your out of the country place to go. Did you have a specific reason? And are you still trying to get there, I guess is the other question.
Well, so Thailand came up as an opportunity for my husband, totally coincidentally, about a month before we were going to visit Thailand. And so that was about a year ago, July, and that looked really promising, but ended up not being a very good fit. But once that kind of hit the radar, I was like, ooh, Thailand, Singapore. For a little while, he was interviewing for a company in Seoul, Korea. I'm drawn to things that are so totally different than what I'm in, that seemed appealing to me. Like, that's just who I am. It's like, oh, that's not at all like America. Let's go there. So that was kind of that. And then Denmark popped up, and like, well, why not? I don't know. I was here 22 years ago in February. It was really cold. I was like, well, why not? It ended up, given what's going on in the world now, a really good place to land. Are we targeting it still? For right now, we're here. We don't know how long we'll be here. He works for a Danish company, so there's no end date, there's no repatriation package. And so, we're committed to 2 years because I feel very strongly that this first year is going to be hard and it's going to take a while to find friends and really feel settled. And so you got to stay at least 1 more year after that. And then after that, depends on whether Snowden likes his job, whether we like it here, whether there's other opportunities, other places, how the November election goes, a full winter. I'm a little concerned about the winter, but, Seattle though, it's darker here and it's, I think, a little and colder here, but I mean, there's a big difference from moving from, say, Florida to Denmark than moving from Seattle to Denmark. We have long December, January, February, so long. It's cold, it's dark, it's rainy. So, we're here instead of there.
So I lived in Berlin, Germany when I was young. So I did not know what the winters were like. I don't remember them. We lived in Topeka, Kansas for a few years. I remember snowstorms, but I don't, I was a kid. So it was very different. So when I became an adult, when I became an adult, I had 3 winters in North Carolina. They were okay. They weren't horrible, but
North Carolina's not bad. That's south.
I know.
So North Carolina, dude, that's not winter.
Hey, if the bridges can ice over, that's enough for me.
Okay, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah. So when I met Kim, and she was in Ohio, so I went up to visit her a couple of times. I did, visit a couple of winters, but I was like, oh no. So when we were talking about, because she had a son at the time who was still young, and so the issue was whether I would move there or she would move to Florida. And this is not to pat myself on the back, but I'm going to say I made the offer that I would move to Ohio. Luckily, she said no.
That's a big offer. Maybe she realized that might not be a long-term relationship if she moved to Ohio.
Well, the desire for her to move to Florida was a lot greater than the desire for me to move to Ohio. So she's actually a beach person.
Yeah. Well, there you go. I mean, and the beach in Cleveland, I'm guessing the beaches in Florida beat the beaches in Cleveland.
Yes, they do. They do. Oh.
Wow.
Yep.
Ohio has real winters. That's legit. I would say North Carolina, not so much, but Ohio, that's legit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially
in fact, my husband. What's that?
I was going to say, especially between Christmas and New Year's, and I can't do that anymore.
Yeah. So my husband and I, 6 months after we got married in August 31st, as you know. And then March, after we got married, we both quit our jobs and traveled around the world until December. So March to December of 2004, which was awesome. But we came home. So we traveled all over the world, like airlines all over the world, and I think we had one flight that might have been changed. We might have had one delayed flight, but most of everything went smoothly. We come home, we go to Ohio for Christmas. We flew out from Seattle on December 22nd, which I remember because it was my father's birthday. And we made it to Chicago because his parents actually live north of Cincy. And so we find it's easier to fly into Dayton, and there's no direct flights to Dayton. So we fly through Chicago. And we get as far as Chicago. Chicago is actually no snow. It's cold, but no snow. And Chicago's fine. But there's a massive snowstorm in southern Ohio, Indiana, and Kentucky. Shuts everything down. Like state of emergency, shut down. So we're in Chicago. You know, I told them if we had kids, we'd be turning around going back to Seattle. But we didn't have kids. We just traveled around the world. We're like, yeah, we can do this. Tried to get a rental car. Couldn't get a rental car. Trains don't go that direction because we had to kind of go east and south, and they just go east or west. They don't go east and south. So then we got a bus. So we were able to get a bus ticket from Chicago to Cincinnati. But we had to get from O'Hare into the city, and by some grace of some God somewhere, we actually were able to get our luggage released to us from Chicago O'Hare. And we got on the L, went into the city, went to the train station, got the bus, got on the bus, when they said, well, we can't get to Cincinnati, but we can get to Indianapolis. Great. And we're supposed to get to Indianapolis at like 11 o'clock at night. I think we pulled into Indy at like 2 in the morning, and it was a blizzard. And I'd never taken the bus in America. That was a really interesting experience. I don't remember a lot. It was not a packed bus, but I do remember that there was one guy who was on leave from, I'm pretty sure it was from Iraq, and he had like, I don't know, 72-hour leave, or maybe it was 4 days leave, and he was trying to get home to see his parents, and he got stuck in Chicago, and he's just trying to get home long enough to give him a hug and turn around and haul back to Iraq. But that was quite the journey, and we got to Indianapolis, and we pulled into the bus station, and we saw this hotel, and we're like, okay, we'll get over there, try and get there before everybody else gets there, and nobody else could go to the hotel. And we, had our rolling suitcases, snow plowing through a foot of snow to the, I don't know what is some cheap hotel. We were stuck there for 2 days until my father-in-law and my husband's brother-in-law they left the state of emergency, and they came and drove from Cincy to Indy to pick us up and take us back. And I said to Snowden, when we have children, if your parents want to spend Christmas with us, they come to Seattle. We are not going to Ohio for Christmas ever again. And we haven't. I was like, that was legit. That was real. Yeah, so it doesn't actually snow that much here, from what I'm told. It's just cold.
It doesn't have
and it's
to.
windy.
It's just
we're kind of on the street. We've been kind of watching the weather, and it's about 10 degrees colder than Seattle is, kind of all year round. Like summer is over here. In Seattle, all of our friends who are posting pictures of the first day of school, their kids are in shorts and t-shirts and flip-flops and stuff, because it's still, warm in Seattle. We were a little underdressed to go to Tivoli today. We had 2 full-on rainstorms, and it's low 60s, high 50s. So in the winter in Seattle, a cold day is like 40s. Like sometimes it'll drop into the 30s and we'll get snow, but typically it's in the 40s. So, it'll probably be 30s. We have very heavy winter coats. One of the first things we did was buy really heavy winter coats. But I think mostly it's dark. Like the sun comes up at like 9 or 10 in the morning and goes down at 3 in the afternoon. It's dark. Really? It's dark. It's dark. But consequently, when, we got here at the end of July, so, a full month after the solstice, and the sun wasn't setting until almost 10 o'clock. But we've been here for 6 weeks, and we started at 8. It was probably almost dark by 8 when we started talking. So yeah, we're really far north. We're about, I think Seattle is a 49th latitude, and I think we're at somewhere in the high 50s, maybe 60 latitude. So we're pretty far north. So yeah, come visit.
Yeah, I don't think
but
so.
But not in December. Summers are lovely.
if you have to start using words like longitude and solstice to understand the weather patterns, that ain't right.
Oh, come on, Florida boy. Suck it up.
So the wife would love to come
Yeah.
visit. She likes to travel, but
Yeah,
I'm
you should
good.
definitely come visit.
Well,
You don't
we,
want to
we have
come?
a reason now. We have friends. We have friends over there, so maybe we can do that.
Friends who are going to have a guest room. The
Well, not
house we're
now.
moving into has a guest room.
Oh, you
No,
found the
not
house.
now. Oh my God. Yeah, we have a house that we have paid the deposit, and we are moving at the beginning of October out into the burbs. We're now in like very urban downtown, not downtown, but we're very urban. And we're moving out to the burbs, which is further north than we wanted, but we got a house with a yard that has a trampoline that our kids are thrilled about. So yeah, and it has like 5 bedrooms. So
Okay. So
we have a
here's
guest
the
room.
real questions. Are you on grid?
What does that mean? What do you mean on grid?
Like on the electrical grid? You know, is it stable?
Oh yeah. Oh, you went up that far. No.
You know, do you have central
I mean,
heat?
we're in the suburbs. Yes, we're in the suburbs. No, we have solar panels on the house, and I think there's floor heating. Floor heating is a big deal. Is kind of how a lot of people do the heating here.
Okay,
Oh, got your attention there.
There's a lot of stuff. Floor heat, yes, that we can handle.
Yes. Yeah, so no, we are fully on the grid. We have plumbing, indoor plumbing, a gas stove I'm pretty excited about. Yeah, it's
Wait a minute.
first world.
You cook?
I do. I'm actually
I don't see you
an
as
okay cook.
I don't see you as domestic Dana.
You know, so I wasn't really a very good cook, but then we decided to be paleo almost 8 years, actually 8 years ago. And that forced us to learn how to cook. So we both can cook. I mean, we're not great cooks and we don't love to cook, but I'm a picky eater and I don't like to eat food I don't like. And so, yeah, I mean, and in Denmark, eating out is super expensive. So we don't eat out. We cook. So yeah, I can cook. I'm a decent cook. I wouldn't say I'm a great cook. I'm a decent cook. So,
all right.
Yeah. So come visit. As soon as, right now, no American passport can't get you anywhere, but eventually that should change, I hope. And you can put Copenhagen on the list.
Yeah, Copenhagen will trump the Bahamas because that's the only thing on my stamp right now.
Oh, okay. Yeah. You would come to Copenhagen over and going to the Bahamas? Wow.
Well, I'm just saying I've been to the Bahamas already. That's my international trip.
Okay.
So
okay.
So, when I tell people, yeah, I travel international, where? The Bahamas. Oh, that's not international. That's what they say.
That's like right off your coast. That's international from Seattle. I don't know if that's international from Florida. That's like us going to the San Juan Islands.
Yeah. When you can take your own boat to the Bahamas or Cuba, that's where people are like, nah, you're not really traveling.
No, that's no, come to Copenhagen. You actually have to get on a plane. I promise you'll like it. It's cool. It's cool here.
All right. Yeah. Well, and the fact that everybody speaks English helps.
Yeah. It's a very easy country to travel in. People are lovely and they're friendly. It's a good country to go to if the only other country outside the US you've been to is Bahamas. You won't be too shocked.
Okay.
I promise.
All right. So
yes.
So see, you were so worried about what in the world are we going to talk about, and here we are, over an hour, and we barely scratched the surface of some of the topics we need to get to.
Yeah, really. I mean, there's so much more. No, I wasn't worried. I just was like, well, does he have an agenda or not? So just to be prepared. But
Yeah.
no, this has been great. And I would love to chat more because there's definitely a lot more to talk about of things. So
Well, we're going to
it
build
doesn't
up.
have to be a podcast
Okay. But we are going to build up to getting
unless you
snow.
want it to be.
No, we can talk other
Okay.
time. But I find that this makes it, there's a mystique to it that people like, where if you just pick up the phone, you don't really see each other. The COVID actually helped because people were Zooming, but now I'm finding people are tired of Zooming. So, so we
I don't
gotta,
Zoom all day, so I'm not tired of it. So I'm good. I'm good.
all right.
Actually, it's really nice to have this connection with somebody. So, well, and a podcast kind of gives you a bit of a structure and a timetable, and so yeah, yeah, I would love to talk to you more and talk more about the BLM stuff that you did back in July and things like that. So that might be a topic for another time when you're ready.
Okay, we can do that. I'll invite you to one of we're supposed to be starting up the private sessions again soon. So maybe I'll invite you to one of those as well and see how that goes.
What's private session mean? That it's not live?
So, yeah, it's not live. And we basically do a group discussion. And we've had anywhere from 5 to 10 people on at a time. And it's basically an open session where people can ask questions, because that was a big part of what needed to be done. There were a lot of friends of mine and people that have known me over the years who haven't had to deal with that and didn't realize that I had to deal with that. But they were, frustrated. Yeah. They were upset. They wanted to do something. And it was a way to, say, look, if you have questions, come chat, ask whatever you want. It won't be a place where you're going to get attacked. I think what happened is a lot of people were posting stuff on Facebook and then just turning into big old fights. And that's not what we need. There needs to be a place where people can, there's a lot of questions that are legitimate for both Black and white people, that there's a gap of understanding that needs to be done. But it needs to be done where people, don't get attacked for asking a question. And it's not, and I got in trouble. A lot of people accused me of, making it too easy, because for many years I didn't say stuff. And then all of a sudden I'm going to, identify with being Black. And I had to say to people, look, it's not that I'm, standing up now and identifying. I've always been Black. I just didn't tell everybody my troubles. You just didn't know what I was going through being Black. So that's what it was. And so a chance for people to hear more of my story, ask some questions, get some clarity. And, at the same time, I listened as well. There were questions that I have of people of, when this is said or when this is done, what do you think? How does that make you feel? And so we had a few of those, and I think they were really good.
That's great. I would love to be in those if the timing works out, because I think there's a lot of conversations that we need more of that, and that was a lot of what we were trying to do around homelessness, and kind of the same sort of conversations, which disproportionately homelessness, it affects people of color more so than based on their percentage of the population. And so a lot of this is all tied into that, and the barriers and the way that the systemic racism that is set in place, and a lot of how our systems, it's working the way it's meant to be working, and it's set up that way. And so bringing in these conversations, so we'd have these monthly town halls that we would bring in speakers, and it was a small we kind of got up to like 70 or 80, but it was kind of more of a more an accessible environment that people could ask questions and ask, maybe seemingly insensitive questions, some that, kind of cringe questions that got really thoughtful responses to, and really opened up conversations about it that, it's like, that's what changes things, is those conversations and understanding what's behind the soundbite, what's behind the stereotype, what's behind the assumed piece of that, and hearing the stories. And it's the individual stories. And I think, somebody like you who, you have a lot of white friends who probably always just, whether it's like, oh, well, it's just Marvin. We know Marvin. Marvin knows us. And, they kind of brush over the fact that you're Black and you live as a Black person in a very white country that has a lot of systemic racism. And so to hear that from somebody who they know and care about is like, I can imagine that would be pretty powerful. And sort of like this aha moment of, wow, it's not just, so many stereotypical things that could be said. So I think that's really awesome that you set that up and have those conversations, because they're hard, they're awkward, but people, I think everybody comes out of it. But I think at the end of it, I'm guessing that probably everybody's like, wow, that was really meaningful, and kind of shifted their way of seeing things and how they're taking in information now. And things have only gotten worse and more in their face since then, since even the end of July. And I can imagine that, every single time there's news of the latest Black guy who was shot in the back has, it's, like.
Yes, it is. It is an interesting dynamic to try to let people know that, this has been our reality for years. And the fact that I think the best way to explain it for me was when people were like, okay, can't this be over already? And I'm like, you're not understanding. You've been uncomfortable for a few months.
Yeah, what?
Yeah, we've been uncomfortable for a few hundred years. It's a big difference. And trying to explain to them that just because I don't exhibit what your, typical Black stereotype is, it still exists. And explaining to people, that I experience a lot of this. Now, it's in different ways. I'm not, out in the middle of a street being chased down by a cop, but I have had cops come to my house, pull me over, and have had to deal with those things. But it's also the situations of, I've owned my business for 23 years. I'm not going to say I'm a great network administrator, but I'm pretty darn good. And I compete with some pretty big computer companies, and I do just as good a job as most of them. Some of them I think I do better. Some of my customers have said I've done better. But there are still times where I have to fight the idea that a company will pay somebody else twice as much money to do the same work because they look like them as opposed to looking like me. And that's a problem.
That is a problem, and that's where you get into this ingrained systemic racism, that the system is built that way to allow that and to be that, and that there's a lot of people who think that that's okay. And so to say, can't this be over already? It's like, what? There's a lot of restructuring that need to happen before this can be over. Of course, but yeah.
takes time.
Yeah.
It'll take time. It'll take some patience and understanding. It'll take having the hard conversations and plowing through. I mean, that's really the only thing we can just say. It's got to stay in our minds, and people have to commit to doing it. And the bigger thing is that when people who are not affected understand that them becoming a part of the answer helps us all.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
the thing.
And I think that's sort of one of the things that what COVID sort of actually brought to light is like, oh, well, this is the struggles that some people are having. It's like, well, white people suddenly realizing that this is a problem. It's like, and Black people are like, yeah, well, we've been saying this for a long time.
Yeah.
Welcome to the party.
Yeah, you got to start listening now.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, it is better late than never, and that's how change happens. But yeah, I mean, but we have to rethink entire systems, and starting with the police and how the police is structured, and that's going to be painful, and that's going to be uncomfortable, and that's going to be scary. Change is hard. Change is scary, and especially when it's changing something that has worked for you, you being me as a white person, but not worked for somebody else, and I don't know what their experience is. It's like, oh, well, but I'm getting screwed and all this. It's like, well, let's step back and think about who's really, exactly. Are you really? So, I mean, yeah, we could talk for a long time about that. And that's, so I would love to know when the next time you have one of those. And if I am able to join, I would love to join.
I will let you know.
I think that more conversation. Okay, excellent.
I'll let you know. And we'll get to talk more about how hard it is to move out of the U.S. into another country.
Okay.
Get some more stories about that. Obviously, we have more stories to share, you and Snowden, me and Kim, and we'll get caught up in those areas as well.
Excellent. Well, I look forward to it.
All right. So for those of you that either watch this later or have been listening to the audio of the podcast, we've been talking with Dana the Brick Armstrong, and she got the name in 1992. I don't know. Was I the first person to really call you the Brick?
No, it was actually from college.
Okay.
No, college. It was that, and it was that was.
Because that was too easy.
A nickname in college.
That was like a layup of a nickname.
I know, it really was.
So,
yes.
All right. So I've been talking to Dana, who now lives in Denmark, and we will be having her on again soon. We'll have part 2 of the experience and be looking forward to some great shows. Dana, thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
All right. And folks, don't know when exactly the next show will be. I've got a couple of guests we're lining up here, hopefully in the next week or so. So we'll be back with another episode of the Uncle Marv podcast. And if you have anything that you would like to get answers to, any stories you'd like to share, send them to Marvin@UncleMarv.com. Head over to UncleMarv.com where you can see some past shows. You can, I haven't updated the pictures and all that stuff, but I hope to be doing that soon. But that'll be the place where you can go and get all information related to not only me, but the podcast. If you'd like to support the show, there is the support page where you can contribute on PayPal. You can actually use a link to buy stuff on Amazon. And if you use my link, I get a little bit of money so that I can pay the hosting bills and do the cameras and the microphones and all that stuff here. So I appreciate that. So once again, thank you very much. And until next time, holla.